Welcome back to CodingCat.dev, where we give you cats the freshest dose of dev snacks. Brought to you by Cloudinary. Build faster with AI-powered image and video APIs. Need better search? Try Algolia, powering discovery. Welcome back, perfect peeps, to CodingCat.dev podcast. I'm just getting back from Google I/O, and this continues, or maybe starts, depending on how these episodes come out, kind of a week or a month full of Firebase and Google I/O announcements, and I have a couple guests coming on to talk about different aspects of it. And today I have Andrea with me because she hosted our Firebase dinner at Google I/O. Welcome, Andrea.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
I definitely wanted to sync up and get to know you more. Do you want to just talk about your current job and position, and then we'll kind of break down the details that led to it?
Yeah, sure. So currently I am a developer relations engineer on Firebase, and a lot of people haven't heard of developer relations engineer. Also, I'm going to stop saying the whole thing. We shorten it to DevRel or DRE. Outside of Google, it's normally known as developer advocate or developer evangelist. So if you've heard of those, that's essentially the same thing as what I do. But pretty much this role entails talking to people who already use Firebase or people who want to know more about Firebase. And because Firebase is a developer tool, we try to figure out what kind of issues people have or challenges people have in developing apps and see how Firebase can help them. So that's kind of why this job exists. And then the other half of that is for people who are using Firebase or for people who are building apps. We bring feedback back to the engineering team, the product team, so that we can make Firebase even better for people to develop apps with.
That's funny. I'm also a developer relations engineer. I can never get that out of my mouth. I'm always like, I'm a dev advocate. It's just too many words.
Yeah, it really is.
Awesome. I want to go in the Wayback Machine, not so far back for you, a little further for me in my high school. So I want to talk about your college experience and what got you kind of down the path of computer science. So your degree is in mathematics and computer science, right?
My degree is in computer science. What is it? Electrical engineering and computer science. Nice. So this was one major at my college, and so I don't really know anything about EE. So basically focused on CS. I had to take two lower div EE classes, and everything else was CS, which maybe I know something about. So when I went into college, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I really liked math, but didn't really know what I wanted to do with that. Went into college for physics, and because to me, physics was like applied math. So it was a step up from not sure how to apply math to applying it in physics, but also didn't really know what to do with a physics degree. So I knew going into college that I wanted to try computer science, wanted to try business, briefly thought about law. But when I started my first computer science class, I really enjoyed it and then just went with it. And then it became my career.
So tell me the next steps, once you finished up kind of that college piece of that, and what did it take to get into the computer science industry as a whole, or a programmer in your day job?
Yeah, so during college, I had a few internships, and I was really lucky because my dad also works in tech, and my grades were not very good. And in those days, basically to get an internship, your grades had to be good. It's not like now where I think students have to have a bajillion things on their resume. It was a little bit easier, I think, back then. But thankfully, my dad also worked in tech, and then he kind of got me my first internship, and then that helped me get later ones. So got lucky there. And then once I started in the industry, I went to Grace Hopper Conference, which is a really big women in tech conference in the US. And so I went there, went talking to a lot of companies there, and then got interviews out of that, and then got my first job from that. So I worked at Cisco doing really different things than what I ended up doing later in my career, which is I was working on networking, internet kind of networking. Yeah. And so I was working on a firewall and adding network protocols to the firewall. So really low level, doing C. One time I had to touch assembly because I had to debug something. That was a way different world back then. Did that for a little more than 2 years, and then decided I wanted to switch to app development, specifically doing front end. don't
That's
really
really cool.
remember how I decided that that's what I wanted to do, but I really do like doing visual things. So Yahoo decided to take a chance on me, and so I worked there for about a year doing front end, working on their Yahoo Finance mobile app, Yahoo Finance, mobile web app. I haven't talked about this for a long time. Uh, so I worked there, did the front end for that for about a year, and then quit and traveled
What
for.
was that written in at that time?
It was React Native.
Nice.
Yeah. And then briefly worked on the Android app as well. And then, left and traveled for a bit and then started at Google 5.5 years ago, which is a long time for me.
That's amazing. Yeah, I forgot you were at Google like that span. Have you always been in the Firebase category?
Yeah, I have been actually. So when I joined a team that no longer exists. We kind of got reorged, but it was the team that was working on the front end, so Firebase console. So it was all front end engineers. We were mostly all in New York City. I think there were a few in Waterloo. At that time, I think there were a few in San Francisco. But anyway, most of us were in New York City, and it was a really solid team. Really loved the people. And then I think a year or two later, we got reorged into product teams.
And I think back then too, which I think is still the case, that was written in Angular, right?
Yes, it is still written in Angular.
Yeah, there was like a massive speed increase somewhere in that time period. I don't remember like if it was when they changed out the engine or when that was, but it was pretty incredible.
Nice.
So thank you for that.
I would like to take credit for that, but I'm not sure if I deserve that credit.
Nice. So when you got kind of reorged into those product teams, your focus like shifted, or did like you have to like deep dive down one of them?
Yeah, so actually, even on the console team, each of us was working on primarily one product. So
Okay.
at the time, I was working on predictions, RIP. But so predictions, and then I did a little bit of CM at that time. And then after predictions kind of went away, I spent a lot of my time doing remote config. So
Nice.
that's the product that I ended up being reorged to, and then was on that team for a bit. And then during COVID, I found out about DevRel, and that's kind of what got me into it. So Google Cloud sponsored a lot of university hackathons, and they were looking for volunteers to kind of go help. It was all virtual because COVID and all that, and me being bored at home on the weekend because there was nothing else to do during that time. I was like, okay, sure. I like helping people like build apps. I like working with students a lot. So I decided, okay, sure, I'll go help out. And then at these events, there were other Googlers who were there, and they would give presentations. And I went to some of them, and one of them introduced himself as a developer advocate. And I was like, okay, don't know what that is. And he also introduced what that job is because no one ever knows what it is, right? So he described it as a social software engineer. And I was like, oh, what does that mean? Like, I want to be a social software engineer because all along my career, I really like coding, but I've always wanted to do something more people facing. But I really love coding, so I don't want to like leave coding per se.
Yeah.
So when he said that, I was like, okay, let me listen to it, listen to what he has to say. And I reached out, talked to him, and then found other people inside the company who also does this job and talked to them more. And then eventually I got around to doing a 20% project with the DevRel on remote config. If you're kind of in the Firebase ecosystem and have watched our videos, it was Sumit. He has also made videos, and he's also out in the community. So you might know him. But anyway, he was my mentor, who like helped me grow into DevRel essentially. And so I did 20%, started doing videos here and there, wrote a blog post. And then eventually I asked if I could do a rotation on Firebase DevRel. And there was no formal process to do this. So I basically wrote a doc. Everyone signed off on it. And then off I went to Firebase DevRel for half a year. And
That sounds so Google.
yeah, I'm very, very grateful that everyone's just like, yeah, sure, you want to do this? All the managers were supportive, and I just went off and did it. And so, yeah, tried it for about half a year. And then within a few months, I was like, yep, I'm pretty sure this is what I want to do. So off I went into Firebase DevRel, and it's been like 2.5 years now since I started that rotation.
Okay.
But my title has changed like 2 years ago now.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard as an engineer or like a coder to give up on that side and like just go full people facing and like giving talks and stuff like that. So we're going to talk a little bit more about DevRel. We're going to take a quick sponsor break and we'll be right back.
Sounds good.
Cloudinary allows you to remove any unwanted backgrounds, so you can reuse assets efficiently. You can also erase objects and people from images for placement in new experiences. For more engaging content, easily turn static images into dynamic animations, and rely on smart cropping to always deliver assets with a focus on the most relevant objects to your brand. Cloudinary Programmable Media. Build faster with AI-powered image and video APIs.
Algolia helps you create a search and discovery engine in 3 steps. Step 1, import your data. Import the API client, initialize the client and index, load the local JSON file, and then push to Algolia. Step 2, configure relevance. Define searchable attributes, add business metric, specify facets and filtering. And step 3, build your search UI, import widgets from the library, add instant search component, add search input, refine by attribute, display results, add pagination. And just like that, you're done. Build search effortlessly with Algolia.
Okay, Andrea, we talked a little bit about like your start in college and how you became a digital nomad, but now I need to dive a little further into the DevRel side of the house. I want to kind of use the Google I/O event that we were just at as kind of a nice example of like, how does this actually work from a DevRel perspective? Can you walk us through like, what does it take to get like blogs out and code out and like all of the things that it took to kind of put that together, at least in your world, if not like the rest of DevRel?
Yeah, a lot of stress around I/O.
Good stress. I like it.
Yes. And we used to have a Firebase conference every fall. So every May and every September, October, everybody would be stressed. Engineers, PMs, DevRel, like everyone.
I remember trying to like get a hold of people and there's just like never responding. I'm like, oh yeah, it's conference season. That's right.
Yeah. And then once one ends, the next one is almost starting. But now we don't do Firebase conference in the same way. So it's a little less stressful around that time. But yeah, a lot of content, and not all the content is put on by DevRel. So we have a lot of videos by engineers, by PMs. I've been a little bit involved in that process, helping with mentoring engineers and PMs to get their script ready, to practice their script, to make the slide deck if they need, to kind of help them formulate a storyline and all that stuff. Yeah, it's a lot of work. Especially with new products, we need completely new documentation as well. So all the technical writers are really busy too. Planning starts way in advance, probably in December, January timeframe. After holidays, people are like, all right, IO's coming up. What are we doing?
Many like close timelines start to get kind of puzzled together. Like there's certain products that are like close. They might make it, they might not. How are you working with a large PM team across all of the different products and maybe even past products? Because there's so much in GCP now, like teams even. Like how does that structure kind of work for you?
Yeah, so on Firebase DevRel, we have people dedicated to specific products. So currently, I'm more or less on Data Connect. I used to be working a bit more on remote config content, and then kind of spread out like for our like more beginner content. But that wasn't released like for a product specifically. But now I'm going to be focusing on Data Connect. And generally speaking, this is how DevRel kind of goes. People take different products if they need content, and if they need support, I guess.
And how many things leading up to it? Like you're having to learn everything about Data Connect. It's not out. Like I didn't even see it in our alpha channel or anything like that. So that was a huge surprise to me. How many months in advance are you kind of working with Data Connect to understand it, to then be able to write? I should bring it up while we're talking about it, like this beautiful blog post introducing Firebase Data Connect. How long did you have to work with the product before you could write that?
Yeah, so with that blog post, so I started playing around with Data Connect in January, but I hadn't been focusing just on that. So I was still doing some remote config stuff, but yeah, kind of got my hands dirty with that. And honestly, a lot of this, like someone I was kind of wrote really roughly like, okay, this is what we want to cover in this. And then I kind of put in more words. And then our technical writer had the docs ready. So I kind of read through that. Michael Blay also and Tyler also like read through that, gave their comments as well. So it was really a team effort. I wrote kind of the words, but a lot of people gave in their input as well. So we
Sure.
could publish that.
Do you want to give it like a brief synopsis of what Data Connect is?
Yeah. So Firebase finally has a SQL database, which a lot of users have been asking for. So we're really excited about this. The content that we have out there is doing really well. David East made a video on our YouTube channel about Data Connect, and it got like 20,000 views in the first 2 days. And so this is like really good feedback for us that people actually want this. But Data Connect is really cool because you create the schema and it kind of does everything else for you. So it creates queries and mutations that you can just use, so you don't have to go write that yourself. And every time you change the schema, it'll change accordingly for you as well.
Nice. I've heard two different terms, and let me see. I have them in my notes. Hopefully they come up here. I don't know if it's synced from my phone. Give me 1 second. We can cut this if it takes too long.
Okay.
I put down like a question on if I should call it schema defined or query defined. I've heard both. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I don't know if I'm the right person to ask.
No problem. I figured I'd throw it out there. I'm like, I have someone on the line, and I think I heard Puff say it one way, and I can't remember if David said it another way, but I was like, I really need to ask somebody like which way we should go with that.
If I had to take a guess, I would say schema defined.
Okay.
But
cool. So back to the like DevRel scenario. As we're kind of leading up to IO at that point, like what goes through your mind as far as like prepping? Like, we met for dinner. How long like did you think you had to like get advanced on that and like see how many people are coming, book the restaurant, like all of those details? What was that like?
yeah, honestly, the dinner idea came really late. So I think that came just maybe 2 or 3 weeks before the actual dinner. And so we sent out our RSVP form and gave, I think, maybe a few days, if that, for people to respond. And then I think that Monday, just 2 days before the dinner, is when I booked the restaurant. And then I think on Tuesday is when I asked other Firebasers if they wanted to come.
Nice.
But still asked. Yeah.
How about like, I don't think, and maybe I missed it. Did you do any presentations at IO this time?
No, I staffed office hours, but not presentations.
Gotcha. And typically, like in a different like Firebase Summit or something, some other conference, what does that look like for you as you're kind of like this Data Connect thing's brand new? What would that look like for you to make a full-on like presentation at a conference?
Yeah, it depends on how long my talk needs to be.
Okay.
But in all honesty, like in the talks that I've done kind of recently, I recycle decks. So I haven't made a new one for a very long time. There is one deck that I've done a lot, which is a intro to Firebase. And I've made a video on this. It's called What is Firebase and How to Use It. But that came from a talk that I've done all around the world, actually. And I need to add Data Connect to that deck now. But if I were to make a new deck, like, yeah, it kind of depends. We have existing content now for it. So I could probably like use someone else's existing deck and then see what I need to change and see who the audience is, maybe change some of the verbiage and then practice it. Honestly, I think trying to memorize a talk and trying to like make sure it goes smoothly is the hardest part. I don't like creating an actual content is okay. But I think the hardest part is like making sure it's in my brain so I can deliver it properly.
I always struggle with, I want to show like the technical tidbits and like I kind of do a mix of two different talks. Like one will be slides and just kind of the overview, but the other one's like hands-on keyboard kind of demo. Which one of those do you like doing better?
I have never done a live demo. And I don't think I will because that sounds really scary to me. Too many things can go wrong. So I'm like, no, I'm happy recording it and then just talking along with it or something. But I don't think I'm going to do live demo.
As they say, the demo gods have to be with you on those days, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I really enjoyed like recording some of the stuff for Firebase Summit and putting it out there, but I don't get the like the feedback and the feel from people if it's not in person. What's your opinion as far as in person, not in person for conference stuff?
Yeah, I definitely like being in person because I get to talk to people. Like, I like this job because I get to interact with
Yeah.
people. Creating content is great too. I really like writing and making videos is pretty fun. But yeah, as you said, like getting the feedback and getting product feedback is important to us as a team. So getting to interact with people and getting to travel too, right,
Right.
is fun.
Yeah, travel definitely seems to be a theme in Andrea's world.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like thinking about Google I/O and how it was set up, and a lot of people don't know, but I'm a Firebase GDE, and the way that some of this is structured is something that we call North America Connect. Still a weird term for me, I don't know why, but so we have this set up where on like Monday we did a dinner with all of the Google developer experts, Google developer groups, Google developers student clubs, and then there's some new ones in there that I didn't know about, like champions and things like that.
Oh, I don't know about that either.
Yeah, so I should finish the like structure here. So on Monday, all those people did a dinner, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, we did the full Google I/O event, and then on Thursday, we did kind of individual North America Connect full day session where all of those groups were able to get together. And one of the cool parts was that we got to talk directly with the Firebase team. And it was awesome having you there and like the other folks that worked on the product as well. Do you find something like that, like being very rewarding and like direct kind of feedback and like what's next for us as products release? Is that really useful for you?
Yeah, I really enjoy that because I think a lot of the times, and we have so many products, right? So even if I were to go look at product feedback, it's a lot to look through.
Yeah.
And so it's nice to just talk to people about specific things that they're working on, and then it's in my brain a little bit more. One thing that I took away from it, actually, and something that we were talking about kind of internally too, is how we, as the Firebase team or Firebase DevRel, might want to interact with GDEs. And there was a lot of good feedback on, like some people asked about, how could we help the Firebase team? I really appreciate that question, right? So it's like something that's like those kinds of comments I don't think we'll really get if we don't actually interact with our GDEs and maybe our GDGs. And so that's also really cool, right? Like that's not going to come through product feedback.
Yeah, that's true. That's kind of those soft kind of things that you don't get to in a direct question. Although I swear every form I've filled out, I'm like, give me what content you guys want. I've never heard anything back. So it's really good to connect with people in person, especially like now I know, like, I think things at Google especially change often where like people and products aren't lined up. So, I forgot like Tyler, I always think of him as being under authentication,
Yeah.
but he's now product manager of, is it just database in
Yeah, I think
general?
all the database products. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of tough even in that regard. It's like I know you're Firebase, but now you're on like some other spot. So it's a little bit of bouncing around. But the coolest part, I think, from Firebase is a ginormous like product or environment or whatever you want to call it. Like there's a massive team behind it, and also because of GCP being under like databases and things like that, there's hundreds of people behind it, right?
Yep.
And so it's always been nice, in my opinion, the way you guys do DevRel, because you can like specifically find someone. Like it might take you a day or two because you guys have a lot going on, but to set up something like this, it seems very personal, and like we can actually get information from the DevRel team back to the DevRel team, and you guys are building content based on that. So I find it amazing that you're able to do that for sure.
Thank you.
What's your favorite part about, I know DevRel, we wear like a ton of hats. I always tell people we're half marketing, half engineer. It's probably not half, but like partially all of these things. What parts of DevRel do you like find the most rewarding?
Talking to people. I
Yeah.
really like that aspect. Going to conferences, going to IO, like just anything where I can interact with people who use the product. It's really exciting to me to hear what other people are doing and also to get feedback, really. I also really like creating content. I realized that I've been writing since I was like 10 years old, probably, right? So I was like writing in a notebook for many years and then various online blogs, and I still like write outside of work. And now I get to be paid to write, which is kind of cool. Yeah, I never really made videos before I started DevRel, but I really enjoy that too. It's a lot of writing too, scripting, coming up with idea, all that stuff, and then making presentations also includes writing the script. So it's a lot of writing in my life, which is nice. Yeah, and just creating content, seeing people consume that content. That's pretty cool.
And Google talked a lot about like AI while we were there, Gemini specifically. And how do you find as a DevRel, like, is that impacting your workflow, your day to day?
It hasn't, but I've thought like I came out of Google I/O kind of thinking like, maybe is there some way that AI could help me make my life easier? I don't know, right? So I still want to write all the content myself. Maybe it can help me generate ideas. I don't know, right? Um, yeah, I haven't really explored how AI could help my job. But I
Yeah.
definitely want to do like most of it myself. Maybe it could abstract away the annoying parts, which
Yeah.
to me, specifically what comes to mind is screencasting for videos. That takes so long. And yeah, I just don't really enjoy that part. Like every so often, if I have to do it, great, it's fine. But if I have to do it for a long time, for days on end, it is not that fun. And if AI can help with that, that'd be great. Don't
Nice.
know if it can, but could be something to explore.
Yeah, for sure. And you and I think, are almost opposite. Like the writing for me is super difficult. Once I'm into it, like I can get going, but AI has helped me a lot in those regards. Like, hey, give me an outline on this subject. I'm like, okay, now I can chop that up. And I'm like, fix this paragraph, make it better. And like, it's constantly like a friend like is sitting by me, and like I'm throwing things and iterating back and forth. So it's nice from that aspect, but I also feel like I can't lose the personalization side to it, right? Like
Yeah.
when you lose your voice and all of that,
Yeah.
I think that's the dangerous part on the DevRel side, because honestly, like it can produce all of this content at this point. And that's the kind of dangerous step. And people are like, when's it going to take over your job? I'm like, I don't know. It could theoretically, but there's so many like nuanced pieces to it. I think you'll still need someone kind of at least collating or correcting and adding like the prompts back into AI to make it right. So it's a little tough call there.
Yeah, I think with AI, I don't think, because I think AI will not be able to come up with ideas. And I think that's also a hard part of DevRel. It's like, what kind of content should we create, right?
Yes.
And once we come up with it, it's like, okay, we need to, a lot of our content is like, there's a lot of like, why should the person watching this care about what we're talking about, right? So maybe AI does know why, but coming up with the idea, I think is something that humans, even for apps too, just generally, right? Like, I don't think unless a AI is like living in human society, it won't know what human society needs, right? So
Yep.
it won't be able to come up with an idea to go create an app. So a human will still have to do that.
Yep.
Maybe AI can help us create the app, but the idea itself, similar to like DevRel work, I don't
Yep.
think AI will just be able to come up with.
Yeah. The creativity side is huge for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. One last question. What was your favorite part of Google I/O and why?
Seeing my coworkers actually, because and seeing people from different teams, because I honestly I like met people that I didn't know, right? Firebase is so big. I interact mostly with DevRel people and then maybe some product managers. But yeah, I haven't seen some of my own team members in person for a long time too. So yeah, it's always, I think for me, DevRel really is about people,
Yeah.
and just meeting people, seeing people. The developer keynote was really exciting, especially when all the Firebasers decided to change their shirts when the new logo was announced. That was great.
Yeah. When am I getting one of those shirts?
Yeah, I know. Everyone has asked us. Don't know. Sorry.
No, it's totally fine. I don't want to put you on that spot. That's awesome. I totally feel the same way. I think in DevRel, if you're not like itching to see people or talk to people, it's probably not the right fit for
Yeah.
you. You might want to go back to engineering. So that's a totally great answer. I love it. All right, we're gonna shift gears a little bit and do our perfect picks. So this is build Gen AI features powered by your data with Firebase and PostgreSQL. So I recorded, or I downloaded about 6 or 8 talks so I could watch it on the airplane rides home. And this was a like decent chunk of one. I think it's 42 minutes long, and it told me everything I was like wondering about and thinking about. It basically showed me how to implement it. So it was fantastic. I'm probably going to pull things out of this to do a talk of my own because like I think what he showed. Sorry, this is Michael. I always say it wrong. Is it Bly or Blay? Blay. Um, he built this cool app, and it's showing off the different Postgres pieces. And one of the biggest questions I had coming out of all of this was like, Firestore can do vectors too. What's the big deal? And then I realized, oh, like this is all nicely typed, and Postgres has this vector PG. I can never remember. Built into it, so it like automated a lot of things. And we were even asking when we met up with the Firebase team, like, great, well, if I have my own data, how can I actually like utilize it and show it off in the app? And like this broke all of that down. So of course I finally took the time a day too late to watch this and like go through it, but it was spot on. So if you're curious about like Gemini AI and like your own data sets and how to utilize those, this is a fantastic talk. Real quick one too. So that is my perfect pick. Are you ready to do yours?
Yes. So I sort of forgot about this website until I didn't. And I actually used it recently to come back to the Bay. But anyway, Skiplagged is a place to find flights. And what they specialize in is if you're trying to go, okay, so let's say you're trying to go from A to B, and another flight has a layover that goes from A to B to C. So sometimes these longer flights, so from A to B to C, it might be cheaper than any flight that you find just from A to B. So this is what Skiplagged is good at doing. And so they got sued before because this sounds a little bit sketchy, but they won, which is why this site is still there. So they warn you to not do this too often if you do book a flight like that. But it is useful, every so often if you are looking for a flight, for a cheap flight.
Yeah, it's really interesting. We were talking kind of prior to the pod, and like my first reaction is always like, go to Kayak and find the easiest one. But this is great too because it kind of has those cheaper flight options. I heard one kid definitely got in trouble and got banned by like United or something, but he was kind of doing it in a very weird way. So I don't know. I don't know how much, like, there's some fine print in there somewhere about kind of checking out of your flight halfway through. So definitely read those little tidbits, I guess. Cool. Well, thank you so much for breaking down DevRel and like reviewing Google I/O when we were out there. It was such a pleasure to meet you and the team. I loved every minute of it.
Glad to hear it, and good to meet you too.
I hope we can have you on again. Maybe we'll talk more about some Firebase details, maybe a little data connect still in the future.
Sure.
Cool. All right. Take care, y'all.